As far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump is the biggest threat to veterans alive today. So understand that at some point in time, we stood up for you. Now it's time for you to stand up for us.
We hope so much that our leaders will see the light, or that we will elect leaders who are really focused on the health and well-being of the American people and on folks like my dear daughter, Sally.
Every single day, and I thought about this a lot last week while I was off, every single day, beyond the constant tsunami of right-wing disinformation and the maddening doublespeak in Washington, D.C. about legislation and loyalty, are actual people, real people with real lives and real families, deeply impacted by Donald Trump and the GOP. Real families, real children in lots of instances, who have begun to see or experience the grave consequences of the drastic cuts made by this Trump administration already. Now their stories are being told as part of the mission of Home of the Brave. Behind it are some of the leaders of the pro-democracy movement who have built a platform for Americans who refuse to be silent about the dangers of Donald Trump's second presidency. From gutting resources and employment for veterans to slashing funding for cancer research, which Ron Easton has relied on as a disabled veteran exposed to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. There's also Trump's targeting of NIH funding for Alzheimer's research that Kirsten Beachy says provides a lifeline for her 11-year-old daughter, Sally, who has Down syndrome, and therefore a 50% chance of developing Alzheimer's in her lifetime. Ron Easton and Kirsten Beachy join us right now. Eddie is here as well for this really special conversation. Thank you so much to all of you for doing this, for being here. I know it's one thing to sit and talk to someone, but it's another one to be on live TV, so I thank you. And Kirsten, I'd ask you first to explain why you're speaking out.
Thanks so much for having us here. And I'm here with Sally and her twin sister, Irene.
I can see. Hi, guys.
Hey. And we're just excited for these gals' future. But we're also, I think, concerned especially for Sally, knowing that the leading cause of death for people with with Down syndrome is Alzheimer's disease. And when she was born, we were so heartened by the amazing studies that are underway, the advances that have been made. And we had great hopes that by the time she was in her 30s and 40s, which is when some people with Down syndrome began to experience the symptoms of Alzheimer's, there would be better detection, better treatments, maybe entirely prevention. And that might extend her lifespan and her quality of life so that she can grow old together with her twin sister. So that's our great hope.
Irene and Sally, you are so beautiful and you are so brave to be here on TV. There are a lot of people that don't do what your mom is doing, so I hope you're proud of your mom. Kirsten, can you tell me how much of the kind of research that you're hopeful for your family and for other families in the same situation, how much of that happens at NIH and how much of that is imperiled?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm not I'm not the expert on this, but I do know that, you know, of all of the medications that were approved in the last decade, from like 2010 to 2019, I think it was close to 400 different medications brought into public usage. Only 2 of them were not funded by NIH funds. And so that really is where the medical advances are coming from. The most recent study that sort of had exciting stuff for folks with Down syndrome, where they're looking for biomarkers of Alzheimer's in a population of people with Down syndrome, was, I think, mutually funded by the NIH and then also by the National Institutes on Aging, which are part of the NIH, as well as, I think, the Eunice Kennedy Shriver program, Children and Youth. So it's all of that work is tied to the NIH. And although the administration has said that they don't want to touch Alzheimer's in public, the budget that Trump has put out, and this is not the big beautiful bill, so-called, this is the budget that will be going through an appropriations process this fall that our representatives will be voting on, that they have a choice about. This budget cuts funding for the NIH 40%, cuts funding for the National Institutes on Aging, which deals with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, by 40%. And already the cuts to employees at the Centers for Alzheimer's Research, I think they've lost 10% of their employees, many of them experienced experts. They've lost the incoming director. And with withholding or delays in funds, the research is disrupted. And even a delay of a few weeks or a month can set us back years. And we don't have years. We have until Sally's 30 or 40 to get our cure.
I cannot tell you how impactful it is and how in awe I am of all of you for telling your story. Ron, I want to hear yours. I have to sneak in a quick break first. We'll be back with Ron on the other side.
Nobody has made more progress on anything than what we've done with our vets. Now, when we find somebody not treating our vets properly, you know what we say, right? You're out, get out, you're fired, get out.
We're back with Ron, Kristen, and Eddie. Ron, the cuts to the workforce, which includes a lot of veterans, to Veterans Affairs, which is, as you said in your video, our promise, our pact with our veterans, are one thing, audacious and dangerous and damaging and unprecedented. But the doublespeak, which is what I talked about at the beginning, this projection onto others, what he's doing himself, is extraordinary. Tell me your thoughts on everything happening right now to America's veterans.
First off, Nicole, thank you for having me here. And if I could just take a quick second and send my condolences and prayers to the people of Texas. I took an oath back in 1969 to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I never in my lifetime thought that at the age of 75 years old, that I would have to admit to the fact that the biggest threat to veterans right now is the commander-in-chief. The budgets that have been made to the VA are life-threatening. Imagine a veteran calls the suicide hotline and nobody's there to answer. Understand that the reason why these guys are calling, because at some point in their lives, they have either seen or done things that no human being should ever see or do, and it lives with them each and every day of their life. A lot of veterans who went through Vietnam, because of the exposure to Agent Orange as they became older, came down with forms of cancer. And nobody, at first, the country wanted to deny it. They didn't want to accept the claims of veterans who had earned the right to the medical care and the pensions. What is being done to the VA right now is unthinkable. Every time I go there, I look at veterans and you've got arms missing, legs missing, depression, anything else and everything else. But the fact that you see in their face is the pride that they served in the United States Army or the Marine Corps or whatever branch of military they were in. There's still that pride as old men and women. And what you are doing to veterans in this country is unthinkable because you lie. Let me just put it that way. You say how much you love veterans, but yet and still, back in 2019, from a fund that you had raised for veterans, you had to be court-ordered to pay $2 million. That's a lot. You say that the bombing in Iran was a success, when really that was nothing more than a $7 million light show. Because to this day, you still don't have a credible bomb damage assessment. So every time the president flexes his muscles, he's not flexing his muscles. He's putting other soldiers like me, younger, of course, in harm's way. And it hurts.
Why is it so difficult to get inside and really understand what's happening to veterans? Is it what you just described? Is it pride? And just say more about what this moment is like for veterans.
This moment is like we have been betrayed. Because the thing about taking that oath of enlistment, there is no expiration date on that oath. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm a soldier for life. And every time you see something like soldiers being used in Los Angeles, that's not what we're here for. Or you say that you don't have enough money to feed starving children, but yet and still you can spend $45 million on a parade that should have never taken place. And then when it did take place, he wasn't happy because they weren't mean mugging enough. The United States military is a fighting force. We are not a parade force, all right? So we are much more important and trained individuals to march down Washington, D.C. That was nothing more than an intimidation tactic. That wasn't to celebrate the other.
I want to bring my friend Eddie Glaude into this conversation. Eddie, I wouldn't put anyone else in this position, but just take a minute and process this with us. The real impact of what Trump is doing to our friends and neighbors. Look to your right, look to your left, and there is someone adversely impacted by things that Trump is doing.
You know, Nicole, I think it's so important what the Home of the Brave website is doing, collecting individual stories, so that we know what Trump is doing is not abstract. It's not just simply an ideological debate. These people are shredding the social contract. You know, I said earlier that, you know, government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. You have been citing poll after poll about Americans that disagree with X policy, immigration, with Y policy, with regards to tariffs, and we can go down the line. But they're doing it anyway. And here we have the tangible impacts of this all-out assault on the government's responsibility to us, right? To us. And so I'm sitting here just trying to think about how do we go from what has happened to me to what has happened to us, to what is happening to the country at large, because that's the only way the country is going to be saved, it seems to me, Nicole. But this is a great beginning.
Ron and Kirsten, I'm going to ask more of you. I'm going to ask you to be part of our conversations, part of our virtual table, and please keep coming back and talking to us. I think people hearing from you will be more impactful than people hearing from me. So thank you very much for being here and sharing your stories. To be continued, I hope. And Eddie,